If you look online right now, you will easily find um, thousands of articles and, those colorful infographics telling you that a Japanese concept called Ikigai is basically the ultimate secret to optimizing your entire existence.
Right. Yeah, they are everywhere.
They really are. And the
Yeah.
promise is just incredibly seductive. It's like, if you just find your absolute perfect purpose, you can monetize it, you can completely cure your burnout, and, you might even live to be 100 years old while doing
If
it.
only it were that simple, right?
Exactly, because there is just one massive problem with this whole narrative. Almost everything the internet tells you about Ikigai is, well, it's a complete Western invention. Welcome to our deep dive. Today, we are stripping away the relentless productivity culture surrounding Ikigai to figure out what it actually means for you, where it truly comes from, and most importantly, what the hard science really says about it.
And we really need this reality check because the Ikigai that you've likely seen, heavily monetized on your feed, it's fundamentally divorced from the historical Japanese reality. It is essential that we separate the quiet, grounded cultural philosophy from this commercial self-help product that the West has packaged it into.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I will fully admit I have absolutely been drawn in by the concept. Just the etymology of the word itself is beautiful. It combines two Japanese words. There's iki, meaning life, and gai, which translates roughly to value or worth. So boiled down, it just means a reason for being.
Which is such a simple, elegant way to put it.
It is, and my notes here show this isn't some modern trend at all. The origins trace all the way back to Japan's Heian period, which is roughly 794 to 1185 CE.
Yeah, quite some time ago.
Right. That is centuries before it reemerged in, 20th century public conversation. So if the historical roots are that deep, where did this highly optimized, hyperproductive internet version come from?
Well, the modern distortion really centers on a very specific Venn diagram. If you are listening to this and have ever searched for purpose online, you have almost certainly seen it. It's the four overlapping circles.
Oh, the four circles, yes. The graphic usually says that your true Ikigai is the exact intersection of four things. It's what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and here's the big one, what you can get paid for. And that sweet spot right in the middle is supposedly the golden ticket.
Right, but that diagram is entirely a Western construct. It has absolutely no roots in traditional Japanese culture whatsoever. Japanese journalists, like Yukari Mitsuhashi, along with numerous anthropologists, they've consistently pointed out that in Japan, Ikigai is understood much, much more loosely.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it is rarely tied to income. It does not need to involve your career, and it certainly does not require you to, monetize your passions.
So the whole what you can get paid for circle was just artificially grafted onto an older philosophy to make it fit a capitalist mindset.
Pretty much, yeah.
It feels like we basically took something meant to be a quiet walk in the woods and tried to turn it into a competitive marathon. We just cannot seem to accept a hobby or a passion unless it is functioning as a side hustle.
That is a highly accurate way to frame it. The West took a philosophy of simple daily existence and turned it into a productivity tool. But what's fascinating here is, if we look at the data on how Japanese people actually view this in their own lives, the contrast is stark. There was a 2010 survey of 2,000 Japanese adults, and it found that only about 31% linked their Ikigai to work.
Wait, only 31%?
Only 31%.
That means a massive majority of people are finding their primary reason for being completely outside of their 9-to-5 jobs. I'm guessing they're finding it in, community, family, or just personal interests.
Primarily hobbies, family, or even just their pets. Traditional Ikigai simply doesn't demand monetary value or a grand career trajectory. It's much more grounded in the small daily acts of living.
Wow. That completely reframes the entire concept for me, but it leads me directly into the other massive claim you always hear about Ikigai, which is the longevity angle.
Ah, yes, the longevity claim.
Right, because if it isn't a magical career formula, what about its reputation as a fountain of youth? I've seen so many headlines suggesting that finding your Ikigai is the literal reason people in certain parts of Japan live to be over 100.
You are definitely referring to the Okinawa connection, which was famously studied as one of the blue zones. Those are the regions with a staggeringly high number of centenarians.
Exactly. And I read a specific anecdote in the source material about a 102-year-old Okinawan man. When researchers asked him what his Ikigai was, he didn't talk about a grand life mission or a legacy. His reason for waking up every day was simply to care for his 2 prize bulls.
What a great story.
I really appreciate the simplicity of that, but my skeptical side is wondering about the actual biology here. Caring for a bull doesn't magically stop your cells from aging What is actually happening in the body? Is this just a nice story, or is there scientific weight to it?
Well, it is a wonderful story that perfectly captures the modest nature of Ikigai, but we must provide crucial scientific context here so we don't oversell it to you. The concept is genuinely well researched in aging science. However, a recent rapid literature review published in the journal Age and Aging treats Ikigai as just one contributing factor among several in the longevity equation.
So it's not a standalone cure for mortality, it's operating alongside other behaviors.
Precisely. It sits right alongside a traditional healthy diet, strong community ties, and regular physical activity. We have to be very rigorous with our language when discussing health research. Ikigai is associated with, or linked to, longevity. We strictly avoid words like cures or prevents because these studies demonstrate correlation, not a guaranteed cause and effect.
Which makes logical sense. You cannot just adopt a hobby, continue eating a terrible diet with zero physical activity, and expect to outrun cardiovascular disease simply because you like gardening.
Exactly. The biology just doesn't work that way. Furthermore, anthropology professor Gordon Matthews, who has studied Ikigai extensively, points out that the daily reality of this concept in Japan is significantly slower paced than the Western secret to a long life framing suggests.
So it's not a biohack.
Not at all. It is not an aggressive anti-aging protocol. It is just a quiet rhythm of daily engagement.
So what does this all mean when we move past anthropological observations and look at the hard numerical data? If Ikigai is a contributing factor to health, what exactly do the clinical studies show? Because if I'm going to rethink my approach to finding purpose, I really want to understand the underlying mechanisms of how it actually affects human biology.
The clinical data is highly compelling. Let's examine the Japan Collaborative Cohort Study. This is a major piece of longitudinal research that followed roughly 71,000 Japanese adults for almost 19 years.
Wow, 71,000 people over 2 decades. That provides a massive amount of statistical power. If I had to hypothesize what they found, I would guess that people with a strong sense of purpose are experiencing less daily psychological stress, which means their nervous systems aren't constantly in a state of fight or flight. Does the data show better outcomes for stress-related illnesses like heart disease?
Your hypothesis aligns perfectly with the findings. The study revealed that individuals who reported a stronger sense of Ikigai had a
So if society doesn't assign you a purpose through a job and a paycheck, your body essentially enters a state of chronic stress. Finding your own internal Ikigai acts as a buffer against that physiological stress.
You are hitting on a crucial biological mechanism known as allostatic load. When you are unemployed, society often strips away your identity. That loss of identity triggers chronic stress, elevating cortisol levels and causing systemic inflammation, which directly damages the cardiovascular system over time.
So Ikigai isn't just a feel-good concept, it functions as an internal locus of control. By generating your own reason to get up in the morning, whether that is caring for an animal, painting, or tending a garden, you are actively mitigating your body's stress response. It is basically a biological shield.
It really is a profound buffer against environmental stress. And, it completely dismantles the Western Venn diagram once again. The people benefiting the most from Ikigai in this study didn't have the what you get paid for circle at all. Their purpose was entirely decoupled from their economic output.
That shifts the entire paradigm. Purpose is not a luxury reserved for the employed class. It is a fundamental biological need. What about cognitive health? Does this internal locus of control protect the brain the same way it protects the heart?
It appears to, yes. We can look at an extensive longitudinal study co-authored by researchers at Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health. They tracked over 14,000 older Japanese adults over a 3-year period.
Another incredibly robust sample size. How do they measure cognitive outcomes over those 3 years?
They monitored the onset of functional disability and dementia. They found that those who reported having a strong sense of Ikigai were noticeably less likely to develop either condition during that window. They also reported fewer depressive symptoms and higher overall life satisfaction.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. I want to push on the mechanism here again. Why would having a sense of purpose prevent the physical deterioration of the brain? Is this a case of cognitive reserve, meaning that having a complex hobby or a rich social life physically builds more neural pathways, making the brain more resilient to decline? Or is it purely behavioral in that people with a purpose are just more likely to leave the house, walk around, and engage with the world?
It is a synergistic combination of both. When you have a reason to get out of bed, you are inherently engaging in behavioral activation. You are moving, interacting, and encountering novel stimuli. That continuous engagement builds the cognitive reserve you mentioned, creating alternate neural pathways that can delay the clinical symptoms of dementia. But again, to be clear, it's an observed link, not a guaranteed medical cure.
Right, of course. Which means the simple act of living with intention literally signals your neurological system to keep adapting and functioning. But everything we have discussed so far, caring for bulls, gardening, pursuing hobbies, it implies a relatively stable baseline of life. It is easy to find a reason to get up when things are generally okay. What happens when the baseline drops? What happens when life becomes brutally, fundamentally hard?
This brings us to perhaps the most important dimension of the research. If we view Ikigai only as a tool for optimization or a sunny day pursuit, we miss its true psychological grit. We have to look at the day-to-day resilience required when circumstances are profoundly difficult. There is a deeply moving qualitative study in the literature that focused on 26 Japanese women who were full-time caregivers for a parent or an in-law suffering from dementia.
Oh, wow. Anyone who has had even tangential experience with dementia caregiving knows that it is an incredibly draining role. It demands physical labor, emotional exhaustion, and often profound isolation. How does a concept like purpose survive in an environment of constant grief and exhaustion?
It takes an immense, unquantifiable toll on the caregiver. Yet the researchers found something remarkable. Even under this real prolonged strain, these women still held on to a sense of ikigai.
Really? Even in that situation?
Yes, they were not finding it in grand achievements, career milestones, or monetized passions. They found it in the small, fleeting daily moments of connection amidst the trauma. A brief moment of clarity from their parent, a shared meal, a quiet moment of peace when the house finally settled.
That completely redefines the word for me. It pulls it entirely out of the realm of self-actualization and places it firmly in the realm of psychological survival. It isn't about having a glamorous, highly paid dream job that fulfills your every desire. It is about locating the smallest possible anchor that makes a genuinely hard life feel worth continuing.
Anchor is the precise terminology we should be using. It is a survival mechanism, and understanding this has direct implications for how modern mental health practitioners are applying the concept today. For example, researchers at the University of Derby recently conducted a study examining how Ikigai relates to clinical anxiety and depression.
Given what we just discussed about the caregivers, I am assuming the Derby study found that Ikigai acts as a significant protective factor against clinical depression.
Yes, they found that a stronger sense of purpose was intrinsically tied to better mental health outcomes and lower levels of depression. But the application goes even deeper than general anxiety. There is a highly recent 2024 to 2025 study focused specifically on psychiatric rehabilitation.
Oh, I think I read about this one.
Yeah, researchers looked at individuals suffering from serious chronic mental illness and used Ikigai as a clinical pathway to help them achieve something called eudaimonic well-being.
Eudaimonic well-being. Okay, I know that contrasts with hedonic well-being, which is the pursuit of raw pleasure, like the quick dopamine hit of eating a piece of cake or scrolling through social media. Eudaimonic well-being is the pursuit of meaning, right? It is the deeper, often more difficult process of building a life that feels significant, even if it isn't always pleasurable.
That is the exact distinction. Hedonic is momentary pleasure. Eudaimonic is meaning-based resilience. In psychiatric rehabilitation, practitioners are realizing that you cannot always cure the underlying illness. Just like you cannot instantly remove the stress of being a dementia caregiver or the economic anxiety of being unemployed. But by helping patients identify their ikigai, their personal, deeply held reason for being whole, they provide them with a eudaimonic anchor that makes the illness manageable.
It grounds them,
Yeah.
which shows that the medical and psychological communities are taking this concept incredibly seriously. This isn't just a lifestyle trend or a hashtag on a sunset photo. It is a rigorously studied, highly recognized psychological framework for human recovery and endurance.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the truth we find in the sources is the exact opposite of the internet hype. True Ikigai is quiet. It is deeply personal, and it is fiercely resilient. It is the 102-year-old meticulously caring for his bulls. It is the unemployed citizen maintaining their cardiovascular health because they refuse to let their lack of a paycheck define their worth. It is the exhausted caregiver finding a single moment of connection in a dark room. It is far, far removed from a corporate diagram instructing you to monetize your passions.
It is genuinely a relief to realize that the internet has it wrong. You do not have to save the world, you do not have to optimize your joy, and you certainly do not have to turn your quiet hobbies into a side hustle. We spend so much energy trying to force our messy, unpredictable lives into those clean, perfectly overlapping circles, expecting them to cure our burnout and solve our existential dread. But the science shows us that the real secret isn't in the overlap at all.
The real secret, and the true biological and psychological benefit, lies simply in the everyday act of living with intention, whatever shape that happens to take for you.
So, to you listening, we are deliberately not going to leave you with a prescriptive checklist, a worksheet, or a productivity hack today. Instead, I want to leave you with a question to mull over as you go about your day. If you strip away your job, your income, and all of your daily obligations, what is the small, quiet thing that makes you want to get up tomorrow? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We will see you next time.